Hello and welcome to the Nottingham South Methodist Circuit Worship. Today we are sharing with you testimonies where God has been present in the lives of people from our circuit community. So we gather this day from our different places and share together the wondrous things that God has done. Thanks be to God.
So this is a story about being a circuit steward. Circuit stewards are volunteers who work alongside ministers and others in a group of Methodist churches that are called a circuit to offer leadership. It's not an easy job being a circuit steward. You have to deal with all sorts of things that go on. Often you're the one who is blamed when things don't go as people expect. And being a circuit steward can be made even harder by superintendent ministers. Many years ago, I was a circuit steward involved in the merger of two circuits. And up to that point, the process had gone really well. The circuits had worked together positively. There was a clear missional reason for doing what we were doing. Relationships had grown. The decision-making had gone astonishingly smoothly. And all that remained was the final formal meetings to give approval for what was happening. And it was at that point I got caught between two superintendent ministers, the senior minister in each of the circuits. I don't remember exactly what the problem was, but I do remember calling him, one of the superintendent ministers, and saying, we need to do things like this. So I then called the other superintendent minister, her, and I'd said to her, he says we need to do things like this. And she said, no we don't. In fact, we need to do things like that. And if we don't do things like that, then I'm bringing this process to an end. So I called him and I said, Shini says that we need to do things like that. And he said, I'm not doing things like that. We need to do things like this. And if we don't do things like this, I'm bringing the process to an end. And that night I was lost. All the months of hard work and excitement about what God was doing seemed to be crashing around my ears. I had no idea what to do, I had no idea how to say, I had no idea how to fix what was going on. And that night at 1 o'clock in the morning, unable to sleep, I was praying. And there were tears of frustration and anguish and disappointment. And then God stepped in. And I felt him say to me, you've done your best, you have held your integrity, and that's all I ask. The rest, whatever happens, is not your problem. And I still had no idea what to do. I still had no idea what to say. I still had no idea how I could fix things. But in that moment, I found a deep sense of peace. Again, I've forgotten what happened after this. I do know that we found a way of having the meetings and the merger went ahead. But actually the detail isn't important to me anymore. The reason this story is important to me is that I learned a lesson, probably for the first time really, that in a situation where everything is going wrong and things seem to have fallen apart and people are blaming you, if you've done your best and if you've held your integrity, then that's all that God asks or wants. The outcome is up to him. I've had to remember that what happened that night a few times since then. And when I do, God steps in and I find peace.
troubled sea. Oh, you are the peace in my troubled sea. My lighthouse, shining in the darkness. I will follow you. Oh, my lighthouse, I will trust the promise. You will carry me safe to shore. Safe to I won't fear what tomorrow brings. With each morning I'll rise and sing. My Lord's love will lead me through. You are the peace in my troubled sea. Oh, you are the peace in my troubled sea. My lighthouse, shining in the darkness. I will follow you. Oh, my lighthouse, I will trust the promise. You will carry me safe to shore. Safe to shore. Safe to Far before us, you're the brightest. You will lead us through the storm. Far before us, you're the brightest. You will lead us through the storm. Far before us, you're the brightest. You will lead us through the My lighthouse, shining in the darkness. I will follow you. Oh, my lighthouse, I will trust the promise. You carry me safe to shore. Safe to shore. Safe to
Good morning, and I'm here, interviewing Claire Crawford. So Claire, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Hi, it's Claire Crawford, and I'm 32 years old.
You've just had a birthday, haven't you?
I just had a birthday.
Happy birthday. Where do you go to church at the moment?
I'm staying at home to keep myself safe.
So you watching church at home? And where do you normally go to church, Claire, before this?
Before this, I went to West Bridgford Methodist Church.
Fantastic. And what do you do, Claire?
I'm usually at Pulp Friction, which is a social enterprise.
And you make food there. Who do you make food
I make food for other people.
Other people. So are you at the fire station or in town?
I'm in the Nottingham Fire and Rescue.
Fantastic. What a great job, Claire. So, Claire, you're going to tell us a little bit about your faith journey, aren't you, this morning? And so you're going to tell us a time when God made a really big difference in a situation. So will you do that?
Yeah.
Excellent.
God made a big difference to me during the national lockdown because I coped very, very well.
Yeah. Excellent. And how did you know that God was helping you?
Through my staff.
Through the people who work in your house?
The people who work in my house, making sure that I was safe and well cared for. And all of my groups all of my groups, or my dance class and choir, and also Larsh as well, they're all moved on to online.
I see. And so how's that helped you in your faith in God, Claire?
The reason that it really helped with my faith is that even though I can't see my friends, and I just have my space in my bedroom, I can feel his presence in my own room.
Yeah, God's with us all the time, not just in church or not just when we're doing something that seems holy, isn't it? It's God's with us all the time. And so, Claire, is there anything that you think people should know about God?
Want God to know that his love is unconditional.
God's love is unconditional. Yeah, that's a great thing to know, isn't it? How do you know that, Claire? How do you feel that?
But knowing I've got people here and I'm not feeling so lonely, because God's with me no matter where I am.
Yeah, that's amazing, Claire.
Having a strong faith and also being strong-willed.
Being strong-willed. Oh, Claire, I wouldn't say you're strong-willed, would you? So because you're confident in God, you're able to have a strong will. You've chosen a special song, haven't you, Claire?
Yeah.
Okay, and what's that song?
I have chosen Do Not Be Afraid, because it really helped me. Really helpful to know that God is there no matter what I'm feeling.
Yeah, God is always there. It says, do not be afraid, because I have redeemed you, doesn't it? I've called you by your name, Claire Crawford. You are God's.
I think I always knew God was close. I think before lockdown, I find solace and time to listen is when I was at the gym. When I listen to loud music and I'm hearing certain songs or songs in general, I feel God's presence through music. God is always there. I just love God, basically.
Oh, good. Thank you, Claire. And
Yeah.
I look forward to big hugs in the future.
Definitely.
Do not be afraid, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. When you walk through the waters, I'll be with you. You will never sink beneath the waves. Do not be afraid, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. When the fire is burning all around you, you will never be consumed by the flames. Do not be afraid, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. When the fear of loneliness is looming, then remember I am at your side. Do not be afraid, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. When you dwell in the exile of the stranger, remember you are precious in my eyes. Do not be afraid, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. You are mine, oh my child, I am your father. I love you with a perfect love. Do not be afraid, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine.
Hello, my name's Margaret, and I'm well and truly past the early years of my life. And as is often the case, I think we're given to reminiscing more as we get older, and I've been thinking quite a lot recently about how the pattern of my life has gone. I was born in Hull into a Methodist family, and for the first 18 years of my life or so, I think I was surrounded by so much love and care, and it was a very flourishing church with a great sense of community. At 18, I came to Nottingham as a student, and I brought with me all the knowledge of the Bible that I'd got, and also those wonderful Methodist hymns, which I've never forgotten. As a student, I joined the Methodist Society and carried on. It was strange because it was almost as if I was on the outside looking in, because I never felt that great flame that people talk about. When I got married, I came to live in Nottingham, and it's been my permanent home ever since. Through all the years, there have been a lot of problems, a lot of difficulties. They talk about the storms of life, and certainly I feel as if I've had some of them. And I'm afraid, to my shame, that my faith went on the back boiler. It wasn't until, believe it or not, in my 70s that I was suddenly reminded through something I saw on the television of the works of C.S. Lewis that I'd been introduced to as a student. And I remembered his book, Mere Christianity. I reread it, and suddenly I had what they call my epiphany moment. It suddenly came to me that all this talk of Jesus dying for sinners really meant that Jesus had died for me, that I was the one who was forgiven, and that God was waiting for me to simply come to him. All those years when I'd struggled, I then realised that God had been looking after me, keeping me, encouraging me, and helping me to grow in understanding and patience and perseverance. I went to church. I went to the only church I knew, which was where my granddaughter worshipped, and I spent 4 years at St John's in Colic. I then realised that I ought to be making moves in my own community. And so I went up to the Holy Trinity Church, being another church of the same sort. And I've been to their 4 o'clock services, which are family services. Strangely enough, last year, about September time, there was no service at Colic, no service at the Holy Trinity, and the door of River Green Methodist Church stood open. I walked in, and the welcome that I had there was just overwhelming. I really felt as if I'd come home, as if things had gone full circle and I was back where I really belonged. All I can really say is I'm absolutely staggered when I look back at how God has been with me over the years and been so patient with me. And I'm eternally grateful for all the love and the friendship that I've found in the church.
I want to share with you my testimony of how God healed me. Around 2004, I was struggling with pain and fatigue, and the doctors diagnosed me with fibromyalgia. This was a debilitating illness that got worse over the years. I struggled to walk around, needing crutches over short distances and wheelchair over longer distances. I carried on preaching in the Methodist church and leading worship, playing my guitar, but every Sunday I would come home absolutely exhausted and spend the rest of the day in bed. There was one week in June 2016 where I was leading the worship in Cotgrave. I'd planned the service, I'd followed the lectionary readings, but then God stepped in during the week and he brought another passage to me about the woman who touched the hem of Jesus' garment, from Luke chapter 8, verses 40 to 56. I was arguing with God all week, saying, no, I've got this sorted. I've got my sermon more or less ready. I've got the service planned. And then the passage kept niggling at me throughout the week until it got to Saturday. And on Saturday night, I was really convicted by God to bring the message on healing. And I was arguing with him. How could I bring a message on healing when I was actually in a wheelchair? That would seem hypocritical to me. But through the day and through the night, I wrestled with God on this passage. And I made an ultimatum really with him. And that evening I said, well, look, Lord, if you help me sleep, then I'll do it. I'll preach on it tomorrow. Now, generally, I slept quite poorly. But that night, I slept through. And in the morning, I held my part of the bargain. I said, yes, Lord, I'll bring that service. So I did. I preached on the woman who touched the hem of his garment. It was an unremarkable service. It was a good service. The church enjoyed it. But nothing miraculous happened. It was the next morning, when I got up out of bed, that I realised I was actually taller than I thought I was. I wasn't stooping over. I didn't need to use my crutches to walk to the bathroom. And the strange thing, I could feel the cold laminate flooring under my feet. Now, I'd had numb feet for about 3 years and couldn't feel anything through my feet until that day. I went back to bed and rested, and throughout the day I wasn't reaching for extra painkillers. I was able to move around the house freer. And I was starting to wonder what had actually happened. And I remembered the passage that I brought the day before. And I reread that passage. And as I reread that passage, I knew that God had done something for me in my life. And the thing that really blew my mind that day was the fact that the woman in the passage had been ill for 12 years. And I recalled back to when the first of my illness came on. And it had actually been 12 years that I'd been struggling with pain and fatigue and taking masses of medication. From that day on, my muscles grew stronger. I was able to reduce my pain medication. The doctors were impressed by what they could see. Really wouldn't give God the credit for it. But I'm now 4 years on and able to do anything that I want to do. And I give God the glory for that, for my healing and the way that he has moved through my life since, in honour of him.
You are here.
We hope that you have enjoyed this act of worship. If you have a story you would like to share, please get in touch with Louise Detain, one of our local preachers. And so a blessing. Go now, expectant that God will be with you, aware of God's presence and open to sharing his love. And may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with you all evermore. Amen.
Hi everyone, Louise here. I'm really excited to tell you about the digital worship team and what we're planning for this Christmas. I know it's a bit early, but in order to get all of the music ready that we'll need for our online services over the periods of Advent and Christmas, we're inviting you to take part in an online choir. We'll be having Zoom rehearsals and then asking people to individually record themselves at home. That might sound a bit tricky, but we're going to give you all of the instructions to make sure that it feels easy and something that you can just get on with and do really, really easily. There's going to be 3 separate opportunities. There's going to be the first one where we're going to just sing regular carols, all in unison. There's no worries about having to read music or anything. Then the second choir, where there'll be some set pieces which will have sheet music and will be in traditional choral parts, soprano, alto, and then tenor and bass. And finally, we've got our last really exciting choir, which is for the children of the circuit and of course any grandchildren of people in the circuit or anyone that would like to take part, where we're going to have our traditional nativity carols sung by the children of the circuit. You can email me. My email is going to be on the screen just here somewhere, and get in touch. We really want to have as many people taking part. We're going to have some Zoom rehearsals, and those should be available to you on the various church Facebook pages and on the various church newsletters. So do have a look and get in touch, and we can send you all the details you need. So come and join us, come and sing, and have a really wonderful time with different members of the circuit.